Shalom, everyone. Shalom. Today we're going to be talking about the eternal calendar, the eternal calendar that was actually mentioned in the very beginning. This message is being sponsored by the House of Shiloh. It's being presented by myself, Elder Yakanina. We're going to talk about the importance of the calendar, when it was first mentioned, and how this calendar is established and set up. Okay? So let's begin. YAHUAH's eternal calendar. Why choose Yah's calendar? There are many types of calendars out there. We have Roman calendars, Babylonian calendars. We have Chinese calendars. There are all types of calendars out there. But why choose to adhere to Yah's calendar? So one of the reasons is because Yah's calendar, YAHUAH's calendar, it proves prophetic prophecies. It proves prophetic prophecies. It also creates historical timelines when using his calendar. It also determines future deadlines for specific events. And it also unifies our weekly gatherings, our weekly Shabbat gatherings. And last but not least, it sets our appointed annual holy days. It sets our holy days, which are most important. So in our in our table of contents, we're going to go over the topics that we'll be discussing. The first one is the architect of time. We're going to talk about YAHUAH's eternal calendar. What is a celestial calendar? The importance of time. How did YAHUAH calculate time? We're talking about the solar calendar that's mentioned throughout the Bible. We'll discuss briefly the Exodus and how it reset the calendar. Changing times and laws. The Julian calendar. The Gregorian calendar. So we'll begin with the architect of time. The architect of time. This is 2nd Esdras, chapter 6. And he said unto me, in the beginning, when the earth was made, before the borders of the world stood, or ever the winds blew, before it thundered and lightened, or ever the foundations of paradise were laid, before the fair flowers were seen, or ever the movable powers were established, before the innumerable multitude of angels were gathered together, or ever the heights of the air were lifted up, before the measures of the firmament were named, or ever the chimneys of Zion were hot, and ere the present years were sought out, or ever the inventions of them that now sin were turned, before they were sealed that have gathered faith for a treasure. Then did I consider these things, and they were all made through me alone, and through none other. By me also they shall be ended, and by none other. This indicates that YAHUAH is the architect of time. Time is not a new concept that came a few centuries ago or a few thousand years ago. Time is something that was discovered or relayed to us when things first began. So we're going to talk about the eternal celestial calendar, which is the sun, moon, and stars. Those are the timepieces for Yah's eternal celestial calendar. And we'll begin in Genesis chapter 1, verses 14 through 16, which is where the origin of time is first mentioned. Brother Andrew, can you please begin reading for us?
Sure. And Elohim said, let there be lights in the expanse of the heavens to divide the days from the night, and let them be for signs and for appointed feasts, and for days and for years, and years. And let them be for lights in the expanse of the heavens, to give light upon the earth. And it was so. And Elohim made two great lights, the greater light to rule the day, and the lesser light to rule the night. He made the stars also.
Thank you, Brother Andrew. This is where I want you to notice is that this is the first mention of time. And you can say, well, I don't see the word time here, but you see the word days and you see the word years, and it requires time to calculate them. So it is implying that time, that for time to be calculated, it's happening right here. You see it here. And he tells you that he put the lights in the heavens and the stars, and they're going to be used for time. So let's talk about the celestial calendar. What is a celestial calendar? Let's look at that. The definition of a celestial calendar, because this is what Yah used. Yah uses his own calendar, which is a celestial calendar, a heavenly calendar. So a celestial calendar is a dating system whose days, seasons, dates, and years are determined by the movement and position of the sun, moon, and stars. And as of today, they call it the solar calendar, as opposed to a lunar calendar, which is what some other people use. Some might say that the solar calendar is a recent discovery, but it's not. It's not a recent discovery. These are examples. The solar calendar is not a recent discovery, and it was used by other cultures as well. Examples are, for example, the Coptic calendar. And this calendar is still in use all over Egypt by farmers to keep track of the various agricultural seasons. So the Coptic calendar is a solar calendar. The Persian calendar is also a solar calendar. Solar calendar. And this calendar is currently used officially in Iran and Afghanistan. And then there's the Badi calendar, which is also a solar calendar. This Persian calendar was created by the Bab, which is a person, in the 1840s. And on 10 July 2014, the Universal House of Justice announced provisions that will enable the common implementation of the Badi calendar worldwide, which began at sunset 20 March 2015. So the solar calendar is not a new idea or a new concept. This is something that has been since the creation of our universe, since the creation of the sun, moon, and the stars. Any questions so far? Anyone? No? Okay. All right.
We'll follow.
Now I want to talk to you about the importance of time. And remember, time is determined by the calendar that you use. So if you use another calendar system that's not a celestial calendar system, then you're going to be, you'll be reckoning your situations with a different time. Okay? And the Egyptians have a calendar, have a timing system. The Babylonians have one. The Julian, which is Roman, has one, and the Gregorian, which is the one that's currently used, has a timing system. And then there's also YAHUAH's calendar, a timing system. So which one of these should we use, and why is time important? So let's look at this. I'm going to ask Sister Billy, can you please read this for me? Genesis 18:14.
Okay. Genesis 18:14. Is anything too hard for YAHUAH? At the time appointed, I will return unto you according to the time of life, and Sarah shall have a son.
So what I'm striving to prove here is that YAHUAH is meticulous and carefully plans the allotted time for his pivotal events. And he uses his celestial calendar to plot these events. Can you please continue to read for me, Sister Billy? Exodus 13:10.
Yes. Exodus 13:10. You shall therefore guard this ordinance in his appointed time from year to year.
So as you can see, in order for you to guard a particular ordinance, you'd have to know what time it is. And for you to know what time it is, you'd have to use a particular calendar to calculate that, right? So time is important to the Most High, and it should be important to us. Continue reading, please, Sister Billy, Galatians chapter 4.
Galatians chapter 4, verse 1 through 2. Now I say that the heir, as long as he is a child, differs nothing from a servant, though he be Adonai of all, but is under tutors and governors until the time appointed of the Father.
Here we are again. The Father is saying that there is a appointed time for a person to go from being a child to being a mature individual. There's a time that's appointed by the Heavenly Father that determines when that transition takes place. One more time, Sister Billy, please, Galatians 4.
Galatians 4, 4 through 5. But when the fullness of the time was come, Elohim sent forth his Son, made of a woman, made under the law, to redeem them that were under the law, that we might receive the adoption of sons.
So this verse is showing you that there was an appointed time even for our Messiah to come. If we were using the wrong calendar, the wrong timing format, we would not have had any idea when to expect his arrival. So time is important. And the calendar that you use is also important. Okay. Any questions on this? Anybody? Or comments?
No.
No? Okay. Now, let's answer this question. How did YAHUAH calculate time? Since we see that time is important to him, how did he calculate it? Let me move this out of the way. One moment. What we're looking at is really, they call it Enoch's calendar, but it's not. I call it YAHUAH's calendar, because where did Enoch get it from? He got it from our Heavenly Father, the Most High, right? We will discuss how this calendar is put together in another lesson, but for brevity's sake, this is just a summarization of it, of how time is calculated, or how Yah has instructed us to calculate time. You'll find the details of this in the book of Jubilee and also on the book of Enoch. In the book of Enoch in chapter 72, and you'll find it in the book of Jubilee, I think, in chapter 6. Those two will agree with each other. Anyway, there are 90 days in a season. 90 days. And there are 4 transitions. So this is how the time is calculated. There's your first transition, right? Your first transition is going to be right here in the spring. First transition is spring, and there are 90 days. 30, 60, 90. Just as we have here mentioned, there are 90 days in a season. So this is the spring season, and there are 90 days. Or you can also say 3 months. 3 months. Okay. There's another transition. And before you go from spring to summer, there's something called a transition day that's right here. I don't have it listed here, but this is where it would be. It would be at the last day of spring, coming into the first day of summer. That's called your transition day. So the second transition is summer, and there are 90 days for that one. 30, 60, and 90 days. When you're leaving summer and you're going into fall, there is one transition day. There's one transition day. And then we go into the third transition. There are also 90 days in that transition, which is autumn. 30, 60, and 90 days, 3 months. When you're leaving autumn and you're going into the winter, there is 1 day to transition from autumn to winter. And that is considered the 4th transition. Okay? And the 4th transition has 90 days also. 30, 60, and 90. When you add up the 4 annual transitions and the 4 seasons, you will get 360 days, and the 4 transitional days, 1, 2, 3, and 4, are not counted. So even though it's a total of 364 days, the transitional days, they're not counted. So you have 360 days. Another way of looking at this is saying 90 times 4 is 360. 360 days in YAHUAH's calendar. Okay? Any questions about this before we move forward? Or comments?
No questions.
Okay. How many months in a season? Which we did just highlight that. There are 3 months to every season. There are 3 months in spring, which are March, April, and May. There are 3 months in summer, which is June, July, and August. There are 3 months in the fall or autumn, which is September, October, November. And there are 3 months in the winter season, okay, which are December, January, and February. This completes the whole yearly cycle for YAH's calendar. Now, what I want to share with you are some scriptures that are throughout the Old and New Testament that proves YAHUAH has always used this solar calendar. He's always used it, and you just need the eyes to see it. So I'm going to ask Sister Lily to start reading in Genesis chapter 7 for me, verses 11 through 12, please.
Okay. In the 600th year of Noah's life, and on the 17th day of the 2nd month, on that day all the spring of the great deep burst forth, and the floodgates of the heavens were opened, and rain fell on the earth 40 days and 40 nights.
So what I want you to take note here is that it was the 600th year of Noah's life, and it was on the 17th day of the 2nd month. Now, if you think Gregorian, you'll think February. But YAH's calendar doesn't begin in the midst of winter. Remember, on our previous calendar, the seasons, spring began with March. They began with March. So this is the 2nd month, the 17th day of the month. Okay. Can you please read Genesis 8, 1 through 4? We're going to continue to build this concept. Sister Lily.
Genesis 8, 1 through 4. And Elohim remembered Noah, and every living thing, and all the cattle that was with him in the ark. And Elohim made a wind to pass over the earth, and the waters assuaged.
Mm-hmm.
The fountains also of the deep and the windows of heaven were stopped, and the rain from heaven was restrained, and the water returned from off the earth continually. And after the end of the 150 days, the waters were abated, and on the 17th day of the 7th month, the ark came to rest on the mountains of Ararat.
Right. Mountains of Ararat. Very good. Now, what I want you to see is this. On the 17th day of the 2nd month, it began. On the 17th day of the 7th month, it ended. Do you see that? The 17th day of the 2nd month, it began. and the 17th day of the 7th month it ended. So how many months are in between those two? Anybody? No?
4.
5 months.
4.
Five,
Oh, you count the...
yeah. So it's 5 months in between the 2nd month and the 7th month, right? When you when you say 7 minus 2, you'll have 5 months. Now, here is one indication without doing any mathematical calculations, but I will do that. It says here it was 150 days. 30 times 5 is 150. Remember, we said that there are 3 months in every season, and each month is 30 days. So if you take 30 days times 5 months, you get 150 days. Now, I realize that you can say, well, anybody can count 150 days on the Gregorian calendar, and that part is true. But here's what you can't do on the Gregorian calendar. When you start counting on the Gregorian calendar on the 17th day of the month, and you count 150 days, you will not land on the 17th day of the 7th month. You will not land on the 17th day of the 7th month. Why is that? It's because, I'll show you in just a second. See, 30 days times 5 months equal 150 days. The 2nd month, and then you add 5 months, and you get exactly 7 months. Let me show you the calendar. Let me pull it up for you. Without actually counting all of this, I just want to highlight the point. If you start on your Gregorian calendar, right, it said on the 2nd month on the 17th. So if you look at February the 17th, for example, and you go 7 months from there, right, you'll be around September the 17th. Because the months in the Gregorian calendar are not at exactly 30 days each month, there's no way you can end up on September the 17th if you count 150 days. It's not possible. So I'm going to leave that mathematical computation for you all to do in your own spare time. But just remember what I'm saying. So this is how I know that the solar calendar was used to calculate the time. That's how I know that, let's see, there we go, that the waters began in the 2nd month on the 17th day, and exactly 150 days later, counting 30 days every month, it ended exactly on the 7th month on the 17th day. And as a matter of fact, remember, February has only 28 days in it, not 30 or 31, so it's short. But in the solar calendar, February has 30 days in it. Okay? Any questions so far, anybody, or comments?
No.
No comments? No questions? Okay. All right, then. Then we're going to move on to the next slide. Okay. I'm going to ask Sister Ronnie if she can read now for me. This is Daniel chapter 12, verses 6 through 7. This is the NIV version because I really wanted to highlight as a point. So I chose 2 versions to make the point. If you can begin reading for me, Sister Ronnie.
The man who was dressed in linen was above the waters of the river. One of the angels said to him, "How long will it be before these amazing things come true?" The man raised both hands toward heaven. I heard him take an oath in the name of the one who lives forever. He answered me, 3.5 years. Then the power of the Kodesh people will be broken at last. And all of those things will come true.
So he said it will be 3.5 years. This is what the answer was. Okay. Sister Ronnie, if you can please read this for me again, but this time it's in your regular KJV version.
And one said to the man clothed in linen, which was upon the waters of the river, how long shall it be to the end of these wonders? And I heard the man clothed in linen, which was upon the waters of the river. Then he held up his right hand and his left hand into heaven, and swore 7 oaths by him that lives forever, that it shall be for a time and a half, and when he shall have accomplished his the power of the holy people, all these things shall be finished.
So the reason I started with the NIRV version is because I wanted us to see that times and a half is 3.5 years. It's 3.5 years. So now we can move forward with some calculations, okay? If we use the Gregorian calendar, remember the Gregorian calendar has around 365 days. So if you multiply 365 days times 3.5 years, which is your times and a half, that will equal 1,277 days, 0.5. Right? This is the Gregorian calendar. But if we use the solar calendar, YAH's celestial calendar, right? Then the times, and the dividing of times, it still equals 3.5 years. However, it's 30 days times 12 months, right? 30 days times 12 months equals 360 days. When you multiply your 360 days, which is 1 year, times 3.5 years, you get 1,260 days. So you can see thus far, when you use the Gregorian calendar and the solar calendar, using the same calculations, you're going to come up with different number of days. I want to show you that the solar calendar calculation is correct and that using the Gregorian calendar is incorrect. So using the solar calendar, which is using 30-day increments, is the way that this time was calculated. This 1,260 days or 3.5 years or times and a half. I'm going to prove to you that the solar calendar is what's being used here again. Okay, but I didn't put it right here. I thought I did, but I didn't, so it's coming. I have it in the scripture that's ahead of this. I forgot to move it, so bear with me. I apologize for that. All right, here is another scripture. Isaiah. This is Isaiah 38, verses 7 through 8. I'm going to ask Sister Ronnie if you could please read this for me again. Isaiah 38, 7 through 8. This is about Isaiah and the sundial, or solar calendar.
And this shall be a sign unto thee from YAHUAH, that YAHUAH will do this thing that he had spoken. Behold, I will bring again the shadow of the degrees, which is gone down in the sundial of Ahaz, 10 degrees backward. So the sun returned in 10 degrees, by which degree it was gone down.
So they called it a sundial back then, right? And today, people still use sundials to calculate the solar calendar or the sun calendar. That's one of the reasons the sundial is used. And notice it's being used here in the time of Isaiah. It's being used here in the time of Isaiah. What I want to show you is that even when this was being used, it still was using 30-day increments every month, as we indicated before. For the solar calendar, the solar calendars have 30-day months throughout the whole year, which is a total of 360 days. And then 4 transition days, which are not added, which are not part of the calculation. So even though it's a total of 364, since 4 of those days are transition days, they're not counted. So the calendar is 360 days. Okay, let me show it to you. The sundial. The sundial went back a total of 40 minutes. When it says it went back 10 degrees, when you calculate it, it means it went back 40 minutes. And the calculations for this is going to be on the next screen. So let's look at that. Okay. So this is the sundial. Okay. This is the sundial. And the hourly marks, they have a separation of 15 degrees. Okay. You see these marks on here? These marks, I don't know if you can see my pointer or not, but you can see there are long lines at the numbers. Okay, you can see there are long lines at the numbers. Those long lines at each number are your hourly marks. They're your hourly marks. And if you notice, there are 12. There are 12 at the top and 12 at the bottom. That's your total of 24. So if you were to count the numbers all the way around, you'll get 12 going up to the top and 12 going up to the bottom, going down to the bottom. That's a total of 24. Is everybody with me so far? Any questions? I don't want to leave anyone behind. Any questions on that?
No question.
Okay. So we know that one day equals 24 hours, which means one rotation equals 360 degrees. Right? When a rotation has gone completely around, it's 360, just like the number of days in the solar calendar. So one rotation equals 360 degrees. So therefore, 1 hour on the sundial is represented by 15 degrees of rotations. One hour. And there are 60 minutes within an hour or within 15 degrees, because remember, 1 degree is 1 hour. So if you say one 15 degree is equal to 60 minutes or 1 hour. So here's the math. 15 degrees, which is an hour, right, times 24 hours. That means you have gone completely around the clock. That's 360 degrees. And remember that he wanted the clock to go back 10 degrees. You remember that? So if you're going to go back 10 degrees, which is, remember, 1 degree, 15 degrees is 1 hour. So he's saying let it go back 10 divided by 15. So it went back 0.67 or 67%. So when you multiply 15 degrees or an hour times 0.67, you get 40 minutes. You get 40 minutes. Okay. I realize there's a little math in there, but you can always pause here and do it yourself so that you can make sure you understand it. But do we have any questions, though, that I can answer before moving forward? Or comments?
None over here.
None? Okay. All right. All right, Brother Andrew, can you please read for me Revelations chapter 11, 2 and 3. Now we're going to show you that 1,260 days using the solar calendar is the right calendar to use. This is the scriptures that I was referring to. Please begin for me.
But the court which is without the temple leave out, and measure it not, for it is given unto the other nation. And the holy city shall they tread under foot 42 months. And I will give power unto my 2 witnesses, and they shall prophesy 1,260 days, clothed in sackcloth.
Excellent. Okay. Come on. Can you please read the Amplified version for me?
Sure. But leave out of your measuring the court outside the sanctuary of Elohim. Omit that, for it is given over to the Gentiles, the nations, and they will trample the holy city underfoot for 42 months. And I will grant the power of prophecy to my 2 witnesses for 1,260 days, dressed in sackcloth.
So just to reference the Old Testament scripture that we were talking about, it's this one. Remember I said that a time, times, and half a time, the correct way to calculate this is using the solar calendar because it comes up to be 1,260 days, right? Okay. Here we go. The Gregorian calendar, 365 days, 3.5 years, is 1,277 days, not 1,260. Do you see that? And the solar calendar, 360 days times 3.5 years is actually 1,260 days. So when the angel has said that the court shall be tread underfoot 40 months, 1,203 score days, or 1,260 days, this is how the angel came up with the calculations. 360 days times 3.5 years equals 1,260 days. The 360 days come from the solar calendar. Remember, the solar calendar has 30 days every month, right? Okay. Any questions so far on how this is calculated, or that this actually proves back in Daniel 12, that is the solar calendar that's being used to say that the 1,260 days or 42 months is the right way for calculating it. And one more thing, if you take your regular Gregorian calendar and count 42 months, you won't get the 1,260 days. You'll get more, which is right here, 1,277 days. Because remember, the Gregorian calendar does not have 30 days every month. Some months have 31 days, and February is actually short a couple of days, unless it's a leap year, and then it has 29 days. So the solar calendar has been used throughout the scriptures. It's just that we did not see it. We never added the dates up to know that these were 30-day increments that were being used. Any questions or comments on this so far? Anybody? Does this prove to you? Do you understand that the solar calendar is being used here? Everybody has a thorough understanding of this? You sure there are? Yes. Okay. Phenomenal. All right, then. Let's move on. All right. Sister Billy, can you please Revelation 13, verse 5 for me?
Yes. Revelation 13:5. And there was given unto him a mouth speaking great things and blasphemy, and power was given unto him to continue 42 months.
Now you see here, the angel is saying that this dragon is speaking great and blasphemous things for 42 months. Did you ever think that that's actually 3.5 years? See, 42 months is 3.5 years. How do we know? Because 30 days times 42 months is 1,260 days. You all see that?
Yes.
Okay. Any questions, or can I go forward? Or comments?
No questions.
Okay, good. All right. All right. Now what I want to show you is, even though YAHUAH had his calendar, his celestial calendar with its timepieces, the sun, moon, and the stars, even though they were set up in the beginning, the calendar was changed for Israel anyway. because they were in captivity, if you can remember, in Egypt. So as they were exiting out of Egypt, Yah was determined to reset that calendar to the way he had it, to put it back the way it was. And this is where we're going to begin. Sister Lily, if you can please read for me Exodus chapter 12, verses 1 through 4.
Yes. And Yahuwah spoke unto El Moshe and El Aaron in the land of Mitzrayim, saying, This month shall be unto you the beginning of months. It shall be the first month of the year to you. Speak ye unto all the assembly of Israel, saying, In the 10th day of this month they shall take to them every man a lamb, according to the house of their fathers, a lamb for a house, and if the household be too little for the lamb, let him and his neighbor next unto his house take it, according to the number of the souls. Every man according to his eating shall make you count for the lamb.
Thank you. Okay. Continue reading, please. Exodus 13, 3 through 4.
And Moshe said unto the people, Remember this day in which ye come out from Mitzrayim, out of the house of bondage. For by strength of hand Yahuwah brought you out from this place. There shall no tamid be eaten. This day came ye out in the month of Aviv.
Okay, when you look on a Hebrew calendar, this is the month of March. This is the month of March. So this goes right back to Yahuwah's calendar, or what some call Enoch's calendar, where the year begins in spring. The year begins in spring. And he said right here, this month shall be unto you the beginning of months. It shall be the first month of the year. Whereas the Egyptians and other nations, they use different types of calendars. So Yah is resetting the calendar, saying, this is the calendar I want you to go by. Disregard what you've learned in Egypt. Disregard that this is my calendar. This is how I want my time to be calculated. This is how you would determine your set apart times, your holy days. This is the calendar you'll be using. Okay. Sister Lily, Deuteronomy 16:1, please.
Deuteronomy 16:1. Guard the month of Aviv and keep the Pesach unto YAHUAH Elohika. For in the month of Aviv, YAHUAH Elohika brought you forth out of Mitzrayim by night.
So it's allowing you to know that the month of Aviv is the time of Pesach, or Passover. So no one can think that Aviv can be any month of the year. Well, how do we know it doesn't mean January? How do we know it doesn't mean November? The whole world knows that Passover is either in March or April. There's no argument with that, right? So here's another indication that Yah is resetting the calendar for his people. Okay. However, even though when they came out of Egypt, for a time they were obedient and they fell back into disobedience. And Daniel was aware of this. Daniel gave a prophecy about this changing of times and laws. I would like for us to look at this. So, Sister Ronnie, if you can begin reading for me, Daniel chapter 7, 24 through 26.
Sure. And the 10 horns out of the kingdom are 10 kings that shall arise. And another shall arise after him. And he shall be diverse from the first. He shall subdue 3 kings. And he shall speak great words against El Elyon. And he shall wear out to go to shame of El Elyon. And think to change times and laws. And they shall be given into the hand until the period of time and time, and the dividing of time. But the judgment shall fit and they shall take away its dominion, to consume it, to destroy it, unto the end.
If you'll notice what I highlighted in yellow, it says times, and the dividing of time. Isn't that 3.5 years? That's 3.5 years, right?
Yes.
That is using the solar calendar, we come up to 1,260 days for this event to transpire. So let's look at the word change. We know that the Hebrew definition of words sometimes are not exactly like the English or Webster dictionary definition, right? So let's look at the word change. The word change, this is the Paleo-Hebrew. You have Shin, Nun, Aleph. Shin, Nun, Aleph. The word change, it means to exchange. Exchange one thing for another. So when it says they will think to change times and laws, they're exchanging it. They're not getting rid of it, where there will be no times or no laws, but they're putting something else in place of Yah's times. They're putting something else in place of Yah's laws, right? And it says here, repeat, to do something a second time. It also means to alter or to pervert. So even though Yah set up his celestial calendar, his solar calendar in the beginning, he reset it with his children when he brought them out of Mitzrayim, out of Egypt. Here's the prophecy saying that it's going to be changed, and it's going to continue to be changed, right? To do something a second time. It's going to continue to be perverted. Okay, let's look at some more. Let's look at the definition for times. And this one I find very interesting. It says they will think to change times and laws. Let's look at times. What are they changing? It says here that they're changing the appointed season. They're changing the appointed season. Remember when it says in Genesis that the sun, moon, and stars are to determine appointed times and seasons? So here, there's the prophecy that they're going to change the appointed times or the appointed seasons. And what's the season? It's a time that's set aside for a special occasion. And what do we call this special occasion? Holy days. So now we're talking about they're going to change the holy days. And these holy days, these times, they are appointed, which means they are fixed. They are fixed. They're not negotiable, and they don't move. They're not dynamic. They are fixed. Okay. Any questions so far as we move forward? Or comments? No? Okay. Oh, did you want me to go back? Or are you good?
Well, I was just going to make a comment with the changing of time that they're going to do in the future, which is now with the whole Gregorian calendar, with it being off every day, every year, it's just way off from your time.
It sure is. That's how come it's a perpetual being off. This is why, let me go back so you can see it. This is why it is a verb. It's something that continues to happen. So you're right. That's a great observation. It's a verb. This is not a noun. This is a verb. Something that is being done. Okay. Another definition for times. This is the BDB definition. It means to appoint a time, and that time is fixed. and is still considered a verb. That means that this appointed time or this fixed time is something that comes continuously through every year. Every year. But Daniel is prophesying that this will be changed. This will be changed. We're going to later on find out why. Okay. Not only are the times being changed, but the laws are being changed. Look at this. So what's the definition of a law? BDB definition says it's a decree that comes from the king, or the law of Elohim. So not only are they going to change the appointed times, the set apart fixed times, they're going to exchange it with something else. But these decrees that were given by the Most High, they're changing that too. Because the Most High says we are to meet with him on these set apart times. And it's not negotiable. But Daniel is prophesying that they're changing that as well. Okay. Looking at the Paleo Hebrew definition for law, this is the one I like the most. The pictograph dalet, which is door, dalet, is a picture of a door, meaning enter or entrance. And the tav, which is a mark. When you combine these pictures mean entering with a mark. Now it should become clear why they want to change the laws. Because when you change the laws, how can you enter with a mark? Right? When two parties agree to follow the laws of a covenant, a mark is given as a sign of continued allegiance. And the scripture tells us that the Sabbath is a sign between me and thee. But when you look that up, it's like it's a mark, right? And the holy days are Sabbaths. Let's look at a bit more regarding this. The dalet equals door. So who is the door? Anybody want to answer that for me?
Yahusha.
YAHUAH is the door. Okay. So tav equals mark. So look at this. This is just a little bit of critical thinking. If sin is defined as to miss the mark or to transgress the law, what does it mean when you hit the mark? It means that you're no longer breaking the law. So this is how we know that the law can never be done away with. Because if the law is done away with, then there is no ability to even sin. So when you hit the mark, that means you're going through the door, right? And YAHUAH is the door. And this is through a covenant. And covenants are unbreakable. Well, let me rephrase that. YAHUAH does not break his covenant. Yasharel can and has, but YAHUAH doesn't. He does not violate nor break his covenants. His covenants are eternal. So what we're learning here, this is an eternal covenant. That to come in through the door, you need to be marked. And to do this, you must obey the law. And the laws have set apart times. Okay? Set apart times that they're changing. Any questions or comments, anybody? No? Okay. So now that we know that now that we know that the calendars Yah's calendar has been changed, let's look at the Julian calendar. Okay? Because the Julian calendar plays an important role in the world today. The Julian calendar. So let's take a look at it. Oops, move this out the way. Okay, the origin of the Julian calendar. Who is Julius Caesar? Caesar was born on July 12 or 13 in 100 BC to a noble family. During his youth, the Roman Republic was in chaos. So, him seizing the opportunity, Caesar advanced in the political system to become a Roman dictator. So you already can see that this calendar is of Roman origin. Okay, it's of Roman origin. As he rose through the ranks of the Roman Republic, Julius ultimately declared himself dictator for life, which shook the foundations of Rome itself. Okay, I'm going somewhere with this, so just hold on, work with me. The Julian calendar, proposed by Julius Caesar, it was a reform of the traditional Roman calendar. Caesar, he used his position as Rome's chief pontiff to enact a calendar reform. He wants to change the calendar. And this was around 46 BC. He wanted to change it because the Roman calendar attempted to follow the lunar cycle, but it frequently fell out of phase with the seasons, and it had to be corrected. So it wasn't properly calculated. And he wanted to recalculate the calendar. But in order to avoid interfering with Rome's religious ceremonies, the reform added all his days towards the end of the months. So Julius Caesar is doing a calendar reform because it's out of sync. It's out of sync with the seasons, and he wants the calendar to fall in sync with their seasons. Okay, any questions so far? No?
No.
Okay. So, around 46 BC, New Year's Day is celebrated on January 1 for the first time in history as the Julian calendar takes effect. Did you all know that? New Year's Day or New Year's Eve, when everyone is celebrating. Everyone is celebrating New Year's Eve or January 1. Julius Caesar, Rome, are the ones who instituted this. And it's considered the first day of the year, the beginning of the year. But remember, in Exodus, YAHUAH said that March is the first day in the beginning of the year. But Julius Caesar says, no, I think we'll change that. So he made it January 1. Okay. Still going somewhere. Watch this. So now let's talk about the Gregorian calendar. Okay. The Gregorian calendar, which is what is being used today throughout the world. So the Gregorian calendar, it was a reform of the Julian calendar. It was instituted by papal bull Inter Gravissimus, and it was dated 24 February 1582 by Pope Gregory, after whom the calendar is named. So this is letting you know, just by looking at the word Pope, that this is dealing with Catholicism. It's the Catholic Church that brought in the Gregorian calendar. Okay? So what's a papal bull? Because it said it was instituted by a papal bull. So what's a papal bull? A papal bull is a type of public decree. Remember, Daniel said it was going to change the king's decree. Remember that? Change the king's decree, change the king's laws, change his times. So the papal bull, now they're making a decree as though they are the king of the universe. It's a type of public decree, letters, patent, or a charter that's issued by a pope of the Catholic Church. It is named after the leading seal, bulla, that was traditionally appended to the end in order to authenticate it. So this is like the way it's stamped or sealed. At the end of it, it's like This is authenticated by stamp, the seal bulla. Okay. What does the word intergravissimus mean? It means English among the most serious. It means it was a papal bull issued by Pope Gregory on 24 February 1582. The document was written. So bear in mind, we have a decree. The decree, this is the decree. Decree is something that's written. A declaration is something that is spoken, right? But this is a written decree. So it was a papal bull issued by Pope Gregory. The document was written in Latin. It was reformed the Julian calendar. The reform came to be regarded as a new calendar in its own right, and it came to be called the Gregorian calendar, which is used in most countries today, including the United States of America. Including the United States of America. Okay. So the Gregorian calendar, what changes did it make? What changes were made? Let's look at it. The Gregorian calendar is the calendar used in most of the world. It was introduced in October 1582. I'm going to sort of skim through it. As a modification of and replacement for the Julian calendar. Here's the principal change. The principal change was to space the leap years differently. Why? So as to make the average calendar year 365.2425 days long, more closely approximating this number, 365.2422, the tropical or solar year that is determined by the Earth's revolutions around the sun. Okay, so they're trying to, the Gregorian calendar was trying to be set up to get closely adhered to the way the sun revolves around each year. But we know, according to YAHUAH's calendar, it's not 365, it's not 364, it's 360. The 4 transitional days are not counted in the solar calendar. But in the Gregorian calendar, all days are counted, which is how they come up with these numbers. But there's another reason why the Gregorian calendar wanted to reform the Julian calendar. Okay? But before we get to that, let's look at what a tropical year is. A tropical year is the time that the sun takes to return to the same position in the sky of a celestial body or the solar system, such as the Earth, completing a full cycle of seasons. Remember, there are 4 seasons. And for example, the time for the vernal equinox to vernal equinox, or the summer solstice to the summer solstice. Either way it goes, it's a complete revolution, a complete going around. Okay, why did Pope Gregory need a different calendar? Brother Andrew, can you read this one for me?
Sure. In 1582, Pope Gregory XIII introduced the Gregorian calendar, although Europe already adhered to the Julian calendar that was first implemented by Julius Caesar in 46 BC. Since the Roman Julian emperor's system miscalculated the length of the year, so of the solar year, by 11 minutes, the calendar had since fallen out of sync with the season. It became evident that the miscalculation of the Julian calendar caused Easter to fall further away from the spring equinox with each passing year.
So there it is. From the traditional Roman calendar to the Julian calendar to the Gregorian calendar, all of these changes have been because of Easter. Easter was moving too far away from the spring equinox, And we all know that the spring equinox is one complete revolution, right? It's annually, and it's the same time every year according to the sun. That they knew. They knew that part. But they wanted their calendar to fall more closely in line when Easter takes place. Not when Passover takes place or Pesach, Easter. This is why they changed the calendar. And now we have our Gregorian calendar because they wanted to make sure that Easter was being observed during the spring. My question to you is, why was this important to the Catholic Church?
So we can miss the mark.
I'm sorry, say it again.
So we can miss the mark.
Exactly. That is so true. So that those whom they had converted would follow their calendar and they would miss the mark. They would be observing the wrong holy days. Let me rephrase, not only the wrong holy days, but the wrong time also. Times and laws. Both of those are changed. So this is a big deal. They went through all of this effort to ensure that there was a counterpart to what Yah was doing in the spring equinox, which is when Moses and the children of Israel left Egypt. And Yah told them, this is the month, this is the season that we will begin the year. So the Pope said, no problem. This is when Easter is going to fall, same time. So now what you have is the swap. Remember, you saw that definition earlier? To change, think to change means to swap. Here is your swap. You have Easter now for Pesach. You have the Gregorian calendar for YAHUAH's versus YAHUAH's solar calendar. Here is your change. This is monumentally significant. Significant. Okay. Brother Andrew, can you read the last paragraph for me?
Therefore, the Pope's motivation for the adjustment, a 0.002% correction in the length of the year, was to bring the date for the celebration of Easter to the time of year in which the First Council of Nicaea had agreed upon in 325 AD, which was traditionally observed on March 21st. The celebration of Easter was tied to the spring equinox, and the Roman Catholic Church considered the drifting date unacceptable.
So this is why this adjustment took place. This was all about holidays. I don't want to call it a holy day because Easter is not a holy day. This is about ensuring that their holiday aligns at a certain time. If the worldly man is so concerned about when their holiday falls on the calendar, how much more so should we be concerned about when our holy days fall and where they fall on YAHUAH's calendar? Right? Okay. Any questions or comments? Anybody? No? Well, I don't know about you, but this thoroughly surprised me when I was putting it together. I had no idea that the Gregorian calendar was in place and was brought about because of Easter. No clue.
Minister, when I did some of my studies on this, I did find that they made the adjustment due to some timing errors related to the Julian. But I didn't know it was focused. I don't recall seeing that it was focused on Easter like that.
Mm-hmm. And something that you would usually say, Brother Andrew, they did this because of an agreement that was made in the First Council of Nicaea in 325 AD. How many Hebrew Israelites were at that meeting?
Not a single one.
That's why the date was changed to what it is, because it has nothing to do with us at all and everything to do with Rome. Okay. All right, let's finish it up. I'll read this one. Because the date of Easter is a function, the computus, of the date of the Northern Hemisphere spring equinox, the Catholic Church considered the increasing divergence between the canonical date of the equinox and observed reality an unacceptable variation. Easter is celebrated on the Sunday after the ecclesiastical full moon, on or after 21 March, which was adopted as an approximation to the March equinox. European scholars had been well aware of the calendar drift since the early medieval period. But when Pope Gregory came along, he's like, nope, we have a purpose and a goal in mind. We need to rectify this. So the error in the Julian calendar, right, it had an assumption that there are exactly 365.25. That was the error. It led to an error regarding the calculation of the date of Easter. This is all about their holiday. This establishment of the calendar is to make sure that that day, why not Christmas? Why not St. Patrick's Day? Why not why not Valentine's Day? Why Easter? Could it be that it wanted to rival the time frame in which our Messiah was crucified? And that event was so pivotal that they had to come up with another date and day to offset it, to lead people astray and away from it? That's the question I ask myself. Okay. Anyway. So the Julian's calendar caused the date of Easter to shift so far away from the vernal equinox that Pope Gregory ordered the calendar's adjustment, and it resulted in the Gregorian calendar. This is what the Julian calendar was before the shift. Notice it's a Julian calendar. It's on the left, says 1582, right? And then the Gregorian calendar is on the right. Do you see that there are some days missing? It goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 15. Do you see that? This is the adjustment they made on the Gregorian calendar so that they can synchronize Easter around that time. This was an epiphany for me. I'm like, wow. Why choose the holiday Easter? Why not all the other holidays?
And to show you the problem you have with this calendar, or just man's calendar in general, they legitimately just deleted days to fix it.
Sure.
For that particular month only, for that particular year only.
Exactly.
So the following October wouldn't look like that. It's just they decided to fix it in this particular month.
Mm-hmm. They sure did. They sure did. All right, we're wrapping it up now. So this is just me showing you that in the Gregorian calendar, when you look at the 12 months, you come up with 365 or 366 days, depending on if it's a leap year or not. As you can see, there are not 30 days consistently throughout the year. This is your Gregorian calendar. Okay. But when you look at YAHUAH's calendar, the days are consistent. There are 30. Okay, let me explain this. There are 30, 30. This 31 right here, it actually is saying this. 30, 30, 30, 30, and then there's 1 day for transition in here, because remember, when you go from one season to a next, there's a transition day. And there are 3 months in each season. So this is spring. So there are 3 30 days here, and then there's 1 day transition. You have summer, 3 30-day months, and then 1 transition. Fall, you have 3 30-day months, and then 1 day for transition. And then you have winter. There are 3 30-day months, and then 1 day for transition. So it's a total of 360 calendar days and 4 transition days, which is 364. Any questions, anybody? Or comments? No?
No.
Okay. All right. So let's summarize what we've learned. What have we learned? We've learned that YAHUAH's calendar is based upon the movements of his celestial timepieces that are called the sun, moon, and stars. We've learned that the past, present, and future biblical events are calculated using YAHUAH's calendar, not the Gregorian calendar, not the body calendar, not the Julian calendar, or any other calendar. If you want to know when the events of Yah are going to take place, you must use his calendar. We learned that each religion has its own method of establishing its calendar and holidays. For example, the Jews use a lunar-based or a moon, new moon calendar for establishing their holy days. Okay, Christians, they use the Gregorian calendar to establish their holidays. And the children of Israel, we use the sun, moon, and stars, the solar calendar, to determine our holy days. We've learned that the Old and New Testament, it supports the use of the solar calendar throughout the whole scriptures, from Genesis to Revelation. And we learned that Daniel prophesied that the times and laws would be changed. We learned that the Julian calendar was introduced to correct math errors of the traditional Roman calendar. And we also learned that the Gregorian calendar was introduced to ensure that the dates for Easter harmonized with the dates set by the Catholic Church, the Council of Nicaea, 325 AD. And that is the end of our lesson. Do we have any comments or questions?
No, I think that was pretty straightforward. I think it would be a good follow.
All right, then. I want to say shalom to you that have stayed with me, participated, and I hope that you'll have an opportunity to review it again and share it with others in the near future. Shalom.